Coming up on today's Race Room, Rosanna gets stuck into some Americans, the World Touring Cars get stuck into some barriers, and Citroën do some laundry. Here it is, the Race Room. Welcome along, lots of great stuff this week, and first we're going to head off to America with Rosanna.
Ben, an update for you from the F1 at the Circuit of the Americas. Sebastian Vettel won the race ahead of Romain Grosjean, and in third place it was Mark Webber. Of course, Webber will compete in his last ever Grand Prix next weekend in Brazil. He says he's actually looking forward to it. There was a crash on lap 1. Adrian Sutil and Pastor Maldonado coming together. Sutil had to retire and the safety car came out, staying out until lap 5, and that's when things were able to get going again. One person that I wanted to talk about was Valtteri Bottas. He scored his first ever point in F1 today, so I'm sure the Williams lot will be pleased that he is sticking around from 2014. So that's all from the Circuit of Americas.
Meanwhile, in Macau, close to Hong Kong, there was one of the most famous and important races for Formula 3 drivers, the Formula 1 stars of tomorrow, the 60th running of the Formula 3 Macau Grand Prix. The European, the British and the German champions all coming together for one of the most important races of their career. Formula 3 European champion Raffaele Marcello was very, very strong until the midpoint of the race, where sadly he crashed out, leaving Antonio Felix da Costa, last year's winner, and Alex Lynn to battle it out for the win. Lynn eventually managed to take the victory, commanding from start to finish his most famous win of his career. And what he said afterwards was, "Macau chooses you. You don't win Macau." There was also the final races of the World Touring Car Championship in Macau, and here are the highlights. So, world champion Yvan Muller won race 1, whilst after 3 hours and 2 red flags, Rob Huff took the final victory of the 2013 season, saying, "I think something wrong was racing." For the last 2 years, Jari-Matti Latvala has dominated the World's Rally GB, so it was expected it would be a 3-time win for him, except he has a rather fast teammate, the world champion Sebastian Ogier, and in fact it was Ogier that took command early on Friday and then was never headed. It was nearly a 1-2-3 for Volkswagen, with Andreas Mikkelsen looking very strong on Sunday, but sadly he made a mistake on stage 19, crashing into a barrier and therefore dropping to 5th position. For Citroën, an important race with Robert Kubica driving for them and Danny Sordo, but it was an appalling end to the season. Look at the mess that Kubica made of his car 2 consecutive days in a row. Sordo could only manage 7th. And finally, the NASCAR season came to a close in Miami, and Jimmy Johnson took his 6th title in NASCAR. He led the championship going into the race by 29 points, and he and his championship rival, Matt Kenseth, came to blows in the midpoint of the race, meaning Johnson dropped down to 23rd. But he did enough to win the race. Matt Kenseth, though, couldn't have done any more either. He trailed his teammate Danny Hamlin's 2nd position in the race and therefore finished up just 19 points behind after 36 long races. And that's your news.
Hi Ben, sorry I can't be at the race room today, but I thought while I was in America I would set you up for this week's Fast Fact. I'm going to ask the American F1 fans if they can name the 4 British drivers on the grid this year. Let's see how they get on. Can I ask you a question? Can you name the 4 British drivers on the grid?
Yes, I believe so. Hamilton, Button. You have time for me to think? You got me. Jeez. Sorry.
Don't worry. DeResta,
and Max Chilton.
Max Chilton.
Very good. We got that.
British drivers, Jenson Button, Daniel Ricciardo, Lewis Hamilton, and give me number 4. Wah, wah, wah. I can't come up with the 4th.
Obviously not Daniel Ricciardo. Can I ask you to name the 4 British drivers on the grid?
Jenson Button, Max Chilton, Paul DeResta, and who else?
Almost got it.
Paul DeResta, Jenson Button, Max Chilton, Hamilton.
Well done, you're the first person. Can you name the 4 British drivers on the grid?
Not at all.
Can you name a driver?
Well, there's Hamilton, of course, but he is British. I just can't name 4. It's true. I don't know.
So we've got 2 out of 4, you're doing well.
I'm only 50%, puts me about average American.
Can you name the 4 British drivers on the grid?
No,
Give it a go.
I can't. I can't even name one.
Can we name a driver and see if they're British?
No, I didn't read the magazine.
How about Hamilton?
There we go, that's 1.
Talk to this guy.
Can we have another one from you?
I was here yesterday, but I have no friggin' clue, to tell you the truth.
So, as I thought, the American people don't really know their F1 drivers. They don't even know their British drivers. So Ben, back to you in the studio.
And now for my favourite part of the week, but without Rosanna this week, it's Tweets of the Week. Number 1 tweet, let's go.
At Neil Hudson. One of the more bizarre text messages I've seen when I've arrived in a country. PS, 600 mop is about 45 quid.
Neil Hudson, writer for Touring Car Times, I received the same text message that I received when I was in Macau. It's a rather strange thing to highlight littering and, more importantly, spitting. Being fined for spitting. Macau is a pretty wondrous place, and it has some very strange peculiarities about it. We won't go any further into that. Next one.
At WTF1.co.uk, the funny thing about Tuned is it's actually less comic and stupid than the actual McLaren team.
Now, I think this is a little unfair from WTF1. I quite like the Toon series, but it's true that the McLaren team performance this year, in comparison to what they were for the last few years, is pretty abysmal. And then they go to the most important race of the year, and they sack the driver that is being represented mostly there in Texas. Atrocious PR, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Kevin Magnussen and Jenson Button in 2014, especially on the Toon series. Find it on YouTube, it's quite fun.
At Andy Stobart, I blame Lotus F1 team for sabotaging my run that track lap, though force excess ballast induced by irresistible catering.
I think food's being blamed for quite a lot of things out in Texas. Woman versus food, have you seen that? Rosanna eating about 5,000 calories. It doesn't sound very nice. And Andy Stobart blaming not only the food, but also headwind and all sorts of things on his run the track time. Lots of slower times in Texas than last year. And Andy, I think, also compromised by a horrible moustache that he's got. Next tweet.
At Citroen Racing, do you know a good laundry service around D-side? Send your offers to Macau WRC.
Another very good video to go and find on YouTube. Mikko Hermanen's crash, I think on day 1 or 2 of World Rally GB. It was incredibly muddy and he ended up upside down with a broken roof, sliding along, collecting mud inside his car. So a bit of a Citroen laundry build to do before the next race, but they've got a few months to sort it out. I'm not sure that's the one that he's been keeping.
At Addison1972, drove through the Welsh place named Pant earlier, skid marks everywhere.
And finally, the British touring car commentator David Addison was on duty in Wales and he found a place called Pant to drive through. And a rather smutty remark from Mr. Addison. Skid marks apparently everywhere in Pant, and that is your slightly controversial tweets of the week. And finally, where is the motorsport happening this week? Well, of course, the most important is the Brazilian Grand Prix in Sao Paulo, down here. and the final round of Formula One. So Formula One over for 2013 after the Brazilian Grand Prix. Always great race, always fireworks, so watch out for that. There's also the final round of the World GT Championship in Baku. I don't know where Baku is. I think it's in Azerbaijan, but it's somewhere in Europe, and maybe you can tell me. Comment below and tell me, but it's somewhere like around here, I think. It's very small, and the Eurovision Song Contest was there once. But Baku is holding a street circuit race for the second time. There are 30 cars. There's a World Series by Renault champion. Sebastian Loeb is racing. Many GT drivers. Should be interesting. And if you've got anything else that might be happening that you can add to this list, please let us know. Comment below. We like to chat. We like to comment. And make sure, if you haven't subscribed yet, that you press that subscribe button. All important. Until then, you'll see me and Rosanna next week. See you later.
Sebastian Vettel has won the US Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas. It's his 38th career win. It's his 12th win of the season.
And these will be what's transmitting the data from the sensors to the actual central processing unit.